Awesome. So, hi everyone. This is Harshla here, and I'm from Merrative. And thank you everyone for joining for the discussion on this beautiful book. And I have half read this, so that's why I couldn't like really participate in this one. But I'll be listening to you guys. And we had a discussion on this previously as well, and they enjoyed it very thoroughly. They went through a lot of subplots and all those things, and hopefully the discussion points they are more or less the same. And there are two more which are added by Priyanshi. So really looking forward to knowing to what you guys also think around those. And yeah, feel free to be yourself, and I really hope you guys enjoy the session. So I am passing it on to Priyanshi, and yeah, you can take it from here.
Hello everyone, Priyanshi this side. I'm from NCR and I am the host for this discussion today. So we'll be discussing The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, and it's a very well-known book, known for its due credit, which it deserves, I guess. And we'll be discussing about this book today. So let's start by introducing ourselves. So when we start with Arpita,
Arpita,
Yeah.
you're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you, Priyanshi. My name is Arpita and I'm from Kolkata. This is my second discussion with Merrative here. And I just reread The Kite Runner for a second time for this session. And I read this last year and it is, I don't know how to describe it. It's an absolutely heartbreaking book that way. So, yeah, looking forward to this one.
Okay, I'd like to take the charge from here. Thank you, Arpita. Nice to meet you. And hi, Priyanshi. I am Silky and I am from Ghaziabad, NCR. And this is my first book club discussion with Merrative. I'm very excited to have a great participation in this one. To tell about myself, I am a little sensitive reader because I found myself crying at a lot of points while reading the book. So I'm very excited to see how this discussion is going to take place. That's it. Over to you, Aditya.
Aditya, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Due to technical glitch, I think that I left. Am I audible to you?
Yeah, Aditya, you are audible and visible.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Aditya Trivedi. I am a law student currently in National Law University, Guwahati, and I'm originally from Ujjain, Madhya Pradesh. I'm currently in my hometown, and I very often read fiction, but I really like this book due to a lot of recommendations which I got. And this book is a perfect example of father son relationship or impact of politics on personal lives, or maybe on the impact of or the importance of Middle East, I can say, in today's world. So I really like this book and looking forward for a great discussion.
No, no, post कर दो चलेगा.
so I guess I'll give you a quick summary and then we can start with the discussion points. So, Kite Runner starts with Amir and the setting of Kabul there in Afghanistan. And Amir lives with his Baba, and there are also servants, Ali, uh, I mean, Ali and his son Hassan, and Amir and Hassan are close playmates. So there's this sort of connection that is established right away, and there's a pivotal point that comes with the kite fighting tournament that happens, uh, wherein there is a scene of sexual violence, trigger warning for those who require it for some reason. So, yeah, there's sexual violence wherein Hassan is in an alley trapped by Asif, Wali, and Kamal, and Asif rapes him, and Amir runs away, and uh, both of them live in this artificial bubble of delusion, or rather denial, so to say, for the lack of a better word, to sort of deal with the situation, and a result of which is Amir and Hassan getting drifted apart. So in 1981, if I'm not wrong, Amir, along with his Baba, flee Kabul, and which was invaded by the Soviets, and they eventually moved to Pakistan and then California. So there, their life is a bit different, and it's I mean, obviously due to this sort of lacking vicinity, and obviously living in US away from the Middle East. And there, Amir meets Soraya, who's the daughter of General Tahiri, and soon they get married. After which, Baba dies, and this is followed by Amir getting a call from Rahim Khan, who asks him to come to Pakistan, where it is told to him that the horrors of the Taliban regime, the war-torn Kabul, is sort of reaffirmed, and he sort of convinces him to go back to his roots, because of Sorab, who is the son of Farzana and Hassan. So Hassan and Farzana are no more, and so Sorab is an orphan, and so the Taliban officials took him a month earlier. Uh, so he is sort of a victim of the violence that goes on, and it's eventually the book molds into Amir trying to sort of rescue Hassan's son, and even though he is going through a lot, there is a slight hint of hope that this will eventually, sort of be normalized. But again, there's this mixed situation between Sorab dealing with his own traumas of the past, and as well as his hopes for coming future. So that was the summary, a rough summary. Now let's come to the discussion points. So the first point is the love and tension between fathers and sons, like Amir and his father, how Amir constantly tries to live up to his expectations. And the second point being friendship of Amir and Hassan and its different dimensions. Third being, did class and caste play a role in Hassan and Amir's relationship, friendship, so to say, to be more particular. Redemption of Amir, how he wanted to redeem himself for the wrong he did to Hassan, and how he tried to redeem himself in front of his father for being the reason of his mother's death, and how politics enters private life in the novel, and how do we interpret the phrase for you a thousand times over, and scenario of Afghanistan, the change they thought would be good, and it wasn't the case, and about immigration as to when he shifted to America, and importance of guests, and finally life of dignity in the second half by his father. So let's start with it.
So let's start with the first one. So there's this first point, right? So Priyanshi, you could kind of tell your own opinions on the first point as to what you think with regards to the novel, and then everyone one by one has to share what they think, and you guys can converse also regarding the same. Okay, so let's start with Priyanshi. What do you think about the first point that is there? Could read it out again so that everybody can
Yeah, sure.
only the
So
first
it's about the love and tension between fathers and sons, like Amir and his father, and how Amir constantly tries to live up to his expectations. So, first of all, there's this constant barrier in communication. There's this chasm that is there between fathers and children. And it's not just about Amir and his father, it's about Hassan and his father, Amir and his father, and even Soraya and his father and her father. Sorry. So there's this chasm. Like first of all, there's Amir, and how there's I'm sorry about the background noise. So there's Amir, and how there's a rift between the father and the son because of obviously the mother's demise, for which he believes that he is the cause. So that is what is there. And then there's Hassan, who is obviously not aware of the sort of, how do I put it, chasm again between Hassan and his own father. And then finally there's Soraya, who has deep seated distrust for obvious reasons, for understandable reasons, with General Tahiri. So there's this constant rift and there's this effort to sort of break away from it at the end of the novel, because you see how Amir tries to be, um, this father figure to Sorab. So he tries to um, mend the abyss that is there in the novel. So yeah, I guess uh, Hosseini really tries to build up the relationship and tries to sort of break from the deep-seated rift that is built in the relationship.
I think I kind of agree with you, Priyanshi here. I because obviously a lack of communication between fathers and their children is the only cause of such dramatical relationship. It is not only in the book that we have seen such behavior. We tend to observe this kind of relationship in the real life as well, because I think for the most part of our childhood or even the adulthood, we ourselves, even as children, do not try to communicate better with our fathers, and that is the same thing happens with them also. They do not try to take that initiative to come and sit and talk to us about our normal daily lives and routine, and to bring and to just eliminate that friction which causes us to hold back our deep emotions or the darkest fears, due to which the distance between fathers and their children uh, becomes a little more stronger, I'd say. And just that you mentioned that there was this similar kind of relationship with all the three people, Soraya, Amir, and Hassan. I would like to mention that the similar thing we also saw between Amir and Sorab.
Yeah.
Ahmed tried to converse little bit better than his own father, but then again, he did not communicate properly his own feelings or what he tried to intend to be with Sorab. That is why Sorab ended in the hospital, because he was not clear of Amir's intention very well. So that could have been avoided if Amir had taken lesson from his own childhood. So yes, I think lack of communication is the only reason why we see such friction.
Arpita, you can go next.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I mean, I would definitely agree with what the two of you are saying regarding, the point about lack of communication. There's always this barrier when, parents in a way become reticent, which was the case of, Amir's father, his very beloved Babajan in more ways than one. So, I mean, he had a certain expectation and he saw Amir not being able to live up to those expectations. Like he was defenseless, more inclined to, literary pursuits than to more purported masculine pursuits. He was not into football. I mean, he took him to games, but he was not, really into it. And his Baba really didn't understand his son's inclination, but somewhere or the other, I would say Amir, in his, I don't know, maybe in his want to correct his wrongs, or maybe for the so-called redemption, maybe that's why he wanted to make all the amends that he could. He tried to empathize with Sorab when he met him. Like, we see him trying and trying very hard to kind of bridge that gap that might have arisen, but still, because somewhere or the other his guilt still remains, I think that's where he kind of has this I don't know, this barrier that he is unable to break for a very very long time. He eventually is, but that is not until the end of the book when he goes, hunting for that kite, when life does come full circle. So yeah, definitely. Isn't it important for parents to, kind of make their children feel comfortable, no matter who they turn out to be? It's not really their something that's in their hands. So yeah, that's what I feel.
Yes, thank you, Arpita. I also agree with you. I agree with the points that there was communication gap between the father and sons, be it Amir and his Baba Jan and the rest of them. And along with this communication gap, there was also a kind of uh, impact of like growing up, bringing up, or parenting, importance of parenting, I can say, and also the importance of events which eventually takes place. As we see that, Amir takes upon himself the sin of his mother's death and other similar circumstances. So these are things which remain in our mind, and they create a vacuum. And when they create a vacuum, we do not find anyone to fill into it, and we find ourselves guilty of that. As the title of the book itself is Kite Runner, so Amir, the protagonist and the narrator, he is the kite runner, and the father, Baba Jan, he is a person looking at the kite runner, but he is not happy with whatever his child is doing. And we see in modern world, in present day, also that there are differences of opinions, differences in interests, and in the modus operandi of a father or and a son, or maybe the parents and children, we can say. So here we need a smooth communication, because all the times, like, these are two hands, and if this is a parent and this is a child, these two cannot be always similar. These can be dissimilar also, and this can be in any form. So we have to accept that particular form, and communication is very important as well as. But I think that the onus is upon the elder one. The father needs to understand, because the child is like, he is not that experienced to understand these complex emotions, and father son relationship has always been complex since time immemorial. So let's discuss all these things in our next talking points. Over to Priyanshi.
I just like to highlight one more thing now, since we are talking about a communication gap between the father and son. I would also like to highlight the relationship between Hassan and Sorab. Not that we got much to read about it, but we can see it in Sorab's words. To mention, when Amir and Sorab were sitting in a park enjoying their small picnic before leaving to US, they had a small discussion wherein Amir tried to tell him what had happened about the rift between him and Hassan. And it did not take Sorab a minute to realize, understand, and know the impact of that horrible thing which had happened to his father, and which has caused that rift between Amir and Hassan. So that demonstrates how well Sorab has been taught about how to deal with these kinds of situations. And this could not have been done if he was not well versed with his father. So it kind of shows that yes, Hassan took lesson from his childhood and tried to eliminate that communication gap with his own son. He tried his best to communicate as much as he could, to tell him all the stories of his childhood, and to ensure that he also learned something from it. So the book totally tells us how we can, if even if we are facing the similar issues, there is always a way to deal with it. And Hassan and Sohrab's relationship was an example for it.
Yes, and one more point, how can we forget Rahim Khan? Because it's not necessary that your father should be your genetic father. Your father can be, you can see a fatherly figure in anybody else. Uh, it is natural that our very first idol is our own parent or a father, but we see fatherly figures figure in our, maybe in some of our relatives, maybe in some of our friends' father. So he used to connect with Rahim, and Rahim also understood the emotions and interests of Amir. And but Baba Jan, he used to complain to his business partner Rahim that his son is not like him, and why is this reason, and why it should. So I already told earlier that it's not necessary that you have to be similar, or maybe do whatever your father is doing. Things can be different, but like you definitely need people like Rahim also to understand.
Also, adding to the point that you mentioned, Aditya, earlier about Amir and like this deep-seated belief of being the one behind the death of his mother. So there's this, I mean, to quote from the book, there's this deeply entrenched psychological effect of the same, which is, after all, didn't all fathers in their secret hearts harbor a desire to kill their sons? So I mean, this is the point where I realize that it's that deep-seated, like the psychological effect, the tangent upon which this effect of breakage of linkage, and how it sort of trickles down to one's mental faculties to the extent that one feels that it's absolutely normal to like harbor a desire to kill their sons. So I guess uh, Hosseini, I mean, beautifully describes the daunting effect of this breakage in communication.
I would actually like to not add, maybe reiterate what you guys have been saying. Maybe Rahim Khan was the father that both Hassan and Amir wanted but could never have with themselves, because he was the person to whom they could confide in. I mean, if you remember, I think Hassan told Rahim Khan what had happened with him, and he was the sole confidant. He knew the entire story, what Amir could never ever be able to, confront his father with. I mean, even after the tension started, lessening a bit after they moved to America, even then he couldn't tell his father what had happened to Hassan, and how horrible it was. Far when they were in Kabul, it was far beyond Ahmed to even utter it. He uttered it very slowly while he was almost asleep, while his father was almost asleep, never to hear what happened. But then Rahim Khan knew everything, every single thing about Amir, about Sorab, about Hassan, about their father. So he was in a way the link that tied them all. Uh, that's what. That's what.
Should we move over to the second point? So the second point is about the friendship between Amir and Hassan and its different dimensions. So would someone like to start?
Okay, I'd like to start here. Um, when we talk about friendship, obviously a big smile comes on our faces every time, because we tend to kind of think of our own friends and how they make us happy. The similar story has been beautifully described by Husseini here in Amir and Hassan's friendship. How Amir used to read to Hassan every day, to kind of help him to understand what he used to read, because Hassan could never get a chance to go to school, and Amir used to empathize with that, and that is why he never said no to his request of reading all the stories, all whatever he used to learn in school. And in reciprocate and Hassan used to reciprocate that love by protecting him, how he protected him from Asif when he uses Golel to scare him out. That was the best part. That was the best scene I loved in this book. And not only in the childhood, Hassan kept his friendship throughout. When Rahim Khan approached him in his own village to ask him to get back and to take care of Amir's house, he first of all he denied, but then when he learned about uh, the demise of Amir's father, he got emotional instantly because he used to see him as his own father. In spite of not knowing that he actually was his father, he felt that empathy so strong that he urged his wife to move along, leave everything aside of their own, and move with Rahim Khan to take care of him and Amir's legacy. So that is how we can say that yes, a bond like friendship is everlasting.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I mean, there's also this element where I'm really sorry about the background noises. So, I really like how there's, friendship that is there even in the lacking rhetoric. I mean, even if there is no sort of direct communication after the kite, the tournament that was held, it's sort of always there through non-verbal nitty-gritties that are woven into the story. So I'm again quoting from the book, but it's something like, um, so Amir says, but even when he wasn't around, he means Hassan, he was. He was there in the hand washed and ironed clothes, on the cane seat chair, in the warm slippers left outside my door, in the wood already burning in the stove when I came down for breakfast. Everywhere I turned, I saw signs of his loyalty, his goddamn unwavering loyalty. So I mean, it's beautiful how there's no communication after that. There is this sort of total embargo on the communication, yet it's still there. And when the summer of I think 1984 follows, and uh, America sort of turns into this escape zone, to sort of have this geographical distance to free oneself from guilt, even then he is there. Which again reminds me of something that, people like Tennessee Williams and Mahesh Dattani often mention. How, the role of memory is such that even uh, geographical distance is something that cannot waver, that, deep seated bond that you've established. So it sort of is a continual process, and it's permanent. It stays. It's not something that erodes over time or due to the distance that is there. So this is something that I really wanted to add. So Aditya, would you like to take over? Would you like to say something?
Yes, am I audible? Yes, so I don't have much to say on this, but I would definitely like to comment that the friendship between Amir and Hassan started from Afghanistan and started from their childhood and ended in Afghanistan and continued till the childhood of Sohrab, I can say. And this was a very beautiful friendship. And but there were differences. Amir and Hassan, they both were different in a lot of terms, and we also see that Baba Jan loves Hassan more, and due to which Amir is jealous of him. And Amir is a person who is jealous, but I don't think that Hassan has such characteristic. Hassan is a person or is a child who is very innocent, and his innocence is always portrayed in the novel whenever we read about him. We also have sympathy, or we also have our affection towards Amir, but some or other point of time we also feel for Hassan and whatever happened to him. So the friendship, yes, I completely agree with Priyanshi that there was the friendship does not always need verbal communication, but here, as we see, that non-verbal communication was there, and the importance of friendship is also portrayed. So this is what I have to say.
Arpita, would you like to add something or put forth a point?
Yeah, actually, I got so lost by what the three of you were saying, I forgot what the question was. So could you please repeat it for me once?
Sure. So it was about the relationship that Amir and Hassan shared, the friendship that was there between them.
Okay, okay. I'm so sorry. So, actually, it is. I don't know what to say about this because this is something that makes me happy and breaks my heart at the same time. This is the exact reason why when I read the book for the first time, I'm sorry I'm rambling here, but when I read the book for the first time last year, I vowed never to read it again because it is so heartbreaking. The thing is, this little boy, he is so loyal, so affectionate, so protective of this other little boy. It starts right from the time when he speaks. I mean, you remember when he says that Amir's own first word was Baba, his father, while Hassan's was Amir. And that is so beautiful. I mean, it's only a child who can barely speak. He's maybe not even a year old. He's just blabbering and he says Amir's name. And then, the numerous cycle rides that they take, the storytelling sessions, everything is like a dream. And here Hassan is loved. Maybe at times he has to face the barbed insults of the society, but then he's sheltered eventually. Whether or not Amir is jealous of him, it doesn't make a difference to him at all, because here we see Hassan as a definitely, more, I would say, a more intellectually endowed child than Amir is, because he catches on to things very fast. So even in that way, he and Amir at times he shows his jealousy, like when Hassan points out the plot point thing in his story, when he says that I got to learn about a plot point from a boy like Hassan, who barely knows how to write a word. These things are beautiful, but when it comes to that immense loyalty, it is almost as if he has taken, an unbreakable oath. Like, if you, of course, you've read Harry Potter movies, there's this blood oath that they take which cannot be broken. It is almost like that. I mean, he goes through abuse just so he can rescue that kite from Asif. What extent of loyalty, what extent of friendship can that be? It is almost godlike, it's almost divine. And to that, I guess, Amir, somewhere or the other, despite his reticence, despite his reluctance, despite all the repentance that he goes through over the years, time and again, when he's even resigned to the fact that they can't conceive because it was meant not to be, it is laced throughout his life in every single every single instance. Wherever he goes, he has Hassan shadowing him, whether he's successful, when he writes his first book, when he gets married to Sarai. Even then, he has, flashes going back if Hassan has gotten married, if somebody would have sung his wife, the wedding song, Ahesta Boro. It's just their friendship is something that was in their blood. I mean, whether or not they would have been brothers, which came as a revelation later, much later, which was too late even for Hassan and Amir, but fortunately not late enough for Sarab. It's heartbreaking and it's heartwarming at the same time. More heartbreaking than heartwarming, if you ask me. So,
I would totally agree with you, Arpita. And I would also like to mention one more point that just struck me right now, and it is more relevant to our first point of discussion about the father-son relationship. I think Hassan and Amir, both of these boys show two major personality traits of Baba. Being his sons, I think Baba's two major personality traits were first, service and kindness, and second, repentance and guilt, which has been shown in the entire book. And Hassan demonstrates the first value, which is service and kindness. He has throughout his life served his only friend, his best friend Amir, even after knowing the fact that Amir knew everything what has happened to Hassan, and he did not say a word, and he did not come to save him. In spite of that, his love for Amir never grew short, and he served till his last breath, I would say. He was massacred in the front of Amir's house when he was trying to save it. So Hassan obviously portrayed Baba's personality traits of service, since Baba also was very kind and used to serve to his society. He built a orphanage, he built a hospital, and he used to give away a lot of money to the homeless children whenever he and Amir used to go for picnic, as Amir has described it. And on the other hand, Amir's life has always been about repentance and guilt to what he has done to Hassan, to what he has suffered after he has moved out to US, to what his Baba had to suffer, and to what his wife Soraya even had to suffer as they were not able to conceive. So I think both of them were tied not in a bond of friendship, but with a biological cord which was given to them by their father that derived their friendship.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So, a random point just like struck my mind into something. So, I had glass menagerie last semester. So, I just remembered something from it. And you know how, I mean, the figure of the glass menagerie, it's so beautiful, it's so pristine, and it's so fragile. So, I mean, this friendship is, I mean, friendship and Hassan's loyalty, it sort of is like the very glass menagerie. It is beautiful. It is very pristine. It's very important, and at the same time, you know that it's highly vulnerable and it may break. And the very process of it being broken yet not broken is something that sort of pierces into your heart and stays with you. And I think that's the most heartbreaking part of the novel, which is again essential to their friendship. So, should we move over to the next point? Okay, so the next point is, did caste and class play a role in Hassan and Amir's friendship? So, would someone like to start off with that?
Yes, I would like to. This is caste system, as we all know. Living in India, we know what is caste system and what is the social hierarchy related to that. And in the novel, also, we see that there is a constant conflict between the Pashtuns and Hazaras. It was a social hierarchy that was already there in Afghanistan. So this has played a relation in the relationship of, on one side there is Pashtuns of who are Babajan and Amir. Then we have Hazaras of who are and Ali and this Hassan. Yes. So there is conflict of social hierarchy. There were instances in the novel where the interacting with Hazaras was not uh, welcoming. So this is the social hierarchy or the caste system role which has played a factor between the relationship of Amir and Hassan. But I don't think that it is true to its effect, because we already know what was the conclusion and how uh, Amir Amir dutifully played his role in his friendship. So I do not agree that there was very dominant role of caste system, but I only agree at social level that it was existent.
Yeah, that's a really very true. So something that, with respect to this is something that we'll discuss later, maybe the politics in the book. But it's more about, the control that a government has, that the control a fascist regime has, which, delves into your psyche and penetrates into it and then develops and tries to normalize it. And it's something that Hassan and Amir do not have. It's something that contributes as an important external factor. And we see it through SF and how he enjoys his book about Hitler. And it's something that it's really scary. And I mean, as bad as it sounds, but it is the reality of a society we live in. And Orwell has talked about it. Shakespeare during his times has talked about it. So it's something that is actually true. A racist, I mean, sorry, a fascist regime is something that is really problematic. And how a self's psyche is something that affects their friendship through the pivotal point of the scene where the kite the tournament that was held there, and how a self then later transcends into a problem that again resurfaces in later parts of the novel. So how this deeply entrenched uh, um, sort of social hierarchy is manifested through a character. So Asif in this way becomes this personification of you know caste and class differences and social hierarchy, and how it's manifested at multiple points. Yet it's something that like shows how fabricated it is, because it does not in any way erode the fabric of friendship that both of them share. So it may be, I mean, it surely is an important factor, because it's something that is a marking point between their relationship, but at the same time, it's just a mark on their relationship at a very superficial level. The foundation upon which it stands is something beyond socially constructed hierarchies and man-made divisions, so to say. So, would someone like to add to that or put forth any other point at the table?
Yeah, I agree with you, Priyanshi. But there are two things: casteism and belief in the casteism. So, casteism is there in the society, but the belief in casteism is fed into our blood the day we are born. So when we are talking about Asif, how he was a determinant believer of casteism, how he used to degrade Hazaras as and when he used to see any one of them on the roads or anywhere, he used to bully them. He used to call them by degrading names also. That was because he was made to believe like that. He was a military person's son, and yet he used to believe in all this because he has, at some point of time, must have observed his parents to believe in the same. A child cannot deviate from the beliefs of his parents if they do not believe in the same thing. So I think if we are talking about casteism, we definitely are talking about how people's upbringing has been about. So that's it on my part.
Arpita, would you like to say something on the same?
Yeah,
No,
definitely.
no.
I mean, I most definitely agree with the two of you. Aditya, were you about to say something?
Okay. No. That was a mistake. I thought that Priyanshi was taking the name.
Okay, okay, okay. So, what was it? Yeah. So I would definitely agree with the two of you in this matter that caste, though yes, there as a social construct, is more the belief is more ingrained in the fact of your upbringing. I would definitely agree on that because Amir's insecurities about Hassan being a Hazara and better than him in certain respects doesn't really stem from the fact that he is a Hazara. It actually comes from his own. I mean, ये हम लोग सब करते हैं. All of us do this when we see somebody better than us. Yeah, how can he be better than me? It's very human, and he's only a boy at that point in time. So it can be attributed more to his childishness than to a social construct. I mean, that is what I feel. Secondly, as far as the polity of Afghanistan goes back in the day, I mean, this is something that, of course, I mean, Aditya said this before. Living in India, we bear an extremely unfortunate testimony to the workings of caste and creed. Till date, I mean, we still have caste based violences here. We haven't yet grown up, we haven't yet taken our lessons, but that is a whole another debate altogether. But for this novel, yes, Asif again is somebody who, I mean, somebody admiring Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf, giving it as a birthday present. How scary can that be? And what does it tell about how damaged might that person be to consider it to be some sort of a biblical reference? I mean, it's astounding. It's astoundingly scary, to be very honest. I, for my part, I wouldn't allow such a person to be anywhere near me or my child, for that matter. But then nobody sees it because he belongs to a economic privilege. He comes from economic privilege, he comes from money, and b, the social privilege that is attributed to him being a Pashtun. So that is one thing, and how that metamorphosis, not really metamorphosis, how that shows itself when he is tortured by a Russian, in prison, when he says that, I was kicked and I laughed. I mean, that is, nothing can be scarier than that when he finally confronts Amir, and then he eventually enters into Taliban just to cement some hackneyed beliefs, and then literally destroying people and people's lives, abusing children. It is, I mean, that particular fabric that is already there in him surfaces in a very, very ugly manner. So yes, again, going in the same vein as the three of you did, caste was definitely something that held the upper hand while they were in that society. It is what drove them away, drove them apart, to be very honest. But within the family, within Amir's family, I mean, there is a scene in the book where Hassan's father, not Hassan's father, sorry, Amir's father is very defiant when Amir says that can't we have new servants. He is very defiant in his in himself, saying that this is Hassan's family and he will not go anywhere. Even in his treatment of Hassan's father, Ali, he knows that there is no other place that he can go. It is something that he treats it as his own reality. He doesn't see them as separate beings. He doesn't see them as the Hazaras as they are. He sees them as his family. So this is saying a lot about the family and about, in a way, maybe the broad-mindedness of Amir's father and Rahim Khan in more ways than one. They were liberals, they were considerate people, they knew that these are humans to be treated as humans. But it is always the society that spoils things for them. I think that is where caste in fact plays as a very negative catalyst in their beautiful, beautiful world and destroying them. Yeah, that's what I think.
Totally agree with all of you. So, should we move over to the next point? Okay, so the fourth point is the redemption of Amir, how he wanted to redeem himself for the wrong he did to Hassan, and how he tried to redeem himself in front of his father for being the reason of his mother's death. So, would someone like to start with it?
Can I start with it, Priyanshi? Thank you. So, the part of redemption again, I think Amir was atoning as much for his own sins, rather his own wrongdoings, as he was for his father. Because at a point in time, he says that, I mean, even I think Silky said it, that both Hassan and Amir were reflections of Baba in two different ways. So while Hassan was the illegitimate, the socially unacceptable part, and the kind, considerate, the servicing part, uh, Amir was the socially legitimate part and the part where he was atoning for his own sins. So I think Amir, in his search for redemption while seeking redemption for himself, also atoned for the sins of his father in which he had wronged Ali. So I think in that way, redemption definitely, again, redemption is something that is again a very recurring theme in the entire story, because Amir always looks for something to atone himself. Because he's a small child. I mean, what can you expect of a 11, 12 year old who has witnessed such a heinous crime in front of him? It is bound to scar him. So that follows him everywhere. It follows him to Pakistan. It also follows him when he is in America. It laces, it kind of interlaces itself throughout his life. He is never able to rid himself of it. And that's when the first chance he gets, at first he is devastated to hear of Hassan's reality when Rahim Khan says to him that he is his brother after all, somebody who shares his blood. He is devastated. He abuses Rahim Khan. He gets very angry on him and then he stamps out. Eventually, to return because he needs to atone himself. So I think that is where it is. Redemption is this. I feel like it goes on in a circle, and it is passed. It might have been passed on from one generation to another, where Amir finally, rids himself of all the debt that he has accrued throughout. So yeah, that's what I feel.
Totally agree with you. And there are two lines through which you- a, a few words that Hosseini mentions in his novel. First being "Zindagi Megzara," life goes on, and the second one being when Rahim Khan says, "There's a way to be good again." So it sort of encompasses the entire the theme of redemption that is there in the novel. So I mean, I primarily saw it in two parts. First being obviously Amir's redemption, and you know how Amir's father Baba Jan had mentioned there's this only one sin, which is infringing truth, and how he himself infringes the same, but his redemption is achieved through the treatment he has for Hassan, and the soft corner, and the sort of closeness he has for Hassan. So it's his way of dealing with the very sin that he had mentioned earlier. And similarly, we see it again. I mean, it sort of reiterates the idea of redemption, which is not just a theme in the a novel. It passes like a heritage, like it's a virtue that it goes on. So it's something that is there, uh, and it's sort of, I mean, it's the effect of past incidents, right? So it's again this judgment based on your past life. So it's sort of again, I mean, it seems as if Amir is sensitive of the fact that one can commit mistakes, which is why when Soraya was earlier with a man, and Amir is totally, all right with it, even though Soraya is the one who feels. I mean, society makes Soraya believe that it's a heinous crime, or some really great mistake, but Amir understands the basic foundation upon which this very guilt that Soraya has is built. So he understands that, and he de-escalates from this mountain of a molehill situation that society creates for a woman. So redemption in this way even makes you sensitive to someone else's past mistakes. So I think that is something that we should really learn from this book. And I mean, obviously, when Rahim Khan calls and says there's a way to be good again, that is something that has stayed with me. And there's always, I mean, Zindagi Mein Zara after all. It comes back and it reiterates, and there's a chance to sort of rectify your past mistakes. So, yeah, that was what I had to say. Would someone else like to say on this?
Yes, so as we say, or as they say, that birth is an uh, accident and death is an incident. So we do not know where we are going to be born, and so the redemption starts itself with the birth of the kite runner, the Amir. He His mother dies while giving birth to Amir. So when he knows about all these things, he thinks that he is the murderer of his mother, and all these matters related thereto. So this is the first point. And also, as uh, Priyanshi said, that we have like we learn from others, or we also observe others' sins. So Amir used to observe his father a lot. He might not admire him, or he used to admire him. He might not talk to him or interact with him a lot, but he used to observe him a lot. Where when he interacted with his father on his sin of drinking alcohol. Then his father told that like these Maulvis are hypocrites, and there is only one type of sin, and that is stealing. I guess that this was the line. So he observes, and also he comes to know about the adultery of his father, and also later on he comes to know that Hassan is his half brother. So these are all things which sets the theme of this which sets the theme of redemption. And this is the more spiritual side of the novel, I can say, where we can learn a lot, we can grasp a lot, and there are facts to back this spirituality. There are instances where we can learn from, where we can relate to. Then this Also, there was one point which I observed and I had made note of that the scar on the upper lip of Amir and the cleft lip of that boy Hassan. These were the signs of, I can say, the kind of relation they both shared. And when in a fight, this boy Amir hurted himself or hurted his lip, he understood how how Hassan feels while dealing with it in everyday life, or how Hassan feels living a life which is not normal, or living a life, I can say, because Hassan, I feel, is very innocent. So these are all things, but I think that he redeems himself at the end. मोक्ष मिल गया उसे अगर हम ऐसा कहे तो. So he redeems himself. He tries his best, his level best, to help Hassan's son, because he tried to betray Hassan in a manner because he was also jealous of him, and then he tried to outcast him from his house along with Ali. So, but I think that he redeems himself, and it gives a very strong message to us that good can be done at any point of time.
Totally agree with you on that. So, Silky, would you like to add something to it?
I don't think I have any specific point to add on. I agree with all of you. I think we can move on to the next point.
Yeah, Priyanshi, just a second. I mean, before we move on to the next point, there is something that I mean, I just remembered. I don't know how relevant it is because we are talking about redemption. I think somewhere or the other, redemption also came for Hassan's biological mother, that is Sanobar. When she comes back to Hazarajat to see her son in flesh and blood, to see if what she had thought, because she is resentful. In her youth, she is portrayed as this beautiful woman who no one can resist and who thinks too highly of herself because of her beauty. And when eventually, when her beauty loses, when she loses her beauty, when she has that scar on her face, when it is her face that has taken the most damage, when she comes back to Hazarajat and she again tries to make amends with her own son, who is all too forgiving because she is his mother, like Hassan he is. I mean, I at times I start doubting if Hassan is really human. I mean, humans are bound to feel some sort of, some sort of, maybe, I don't know, hatred. Hatred is too strong a word here. Some sort of animosity for all the wrongs, but
Yeah,
he
I mean,
doesn't.
there are no grudges he holds, and it's
Exactly.
something inhuman. It's too good to
Exactly. Exactly. So he comes back, she comes back, he takes her in with all his heart. She is the one who delivers Sohrab after, Farzana has her first miscarriage. So again, there's this circle that even his mother goes through. So I mean, this is how redemption plays itself, and Hosseini has woven it so beautifully in every character, even the small one. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add rather to this.
That was a really great observation. Like even the minor characters get to seek the same. So moving on to the next point now, we have how politics enters private lives in the novel. So we sort of talked about it already. Would someone like to add something to it?
I think you guys can move on because I think you guys covered it. So you can shift to the next one.
Surely. So the next point being, how do you interpret the phrase "for you 1,000 times over"? So for me, as we discussed earlier, the theme of redemption, it's sort of, it is a complementary term with that because, for you 1,000 times over, there are many ways through which you can rectify and alter your previous mistakes that you had. So the life gives you many chances is a way in which I can alternately transverse through the phrase, which is obviously a secondary point of view opposed to the dominant rhetoric and meaning of the phrase, which is evident through Hassan's work. So, okay, I'm blabbering now. So, would someone like to take over and add something?
I think since we talked about redemption, I feel that somewhere Amir still has that thing in his heart that he might never be able to redeem himself, whatever he would do. So, in this phrase that he says to Sorab, that for you thousand times over, he feels that urge.
Arpita and Aditya, would you
Live
guys
streaming
like
is
to add
on.
something to it?
Yeah, can you guys see me? Can you guys hear me? Okay, I think it was some sort of connectivity problem that, you know, interrupted. Could you please repeat the question once?
Sure. So we were trying to find out how we interpret the phrase for you 1,000 times over.
Okay. Again, I think what I linked this to was uh, a the friendship that was between them, which was again something that was there while their fathers were young. That is Amir's Baba and Ali's Baba, sorry, Hassan's Baba, Ali. And then it was passed down to, you know, Hassan and Amir. So again, from there, I think it also lies in Hassan's unswerving loyalty to his Amir Jan, his Amir Agha, that he is so, so very protective of that boy, one little boy being protective of another little boy to the extent of doing everything for him. So which is why when he first says the word for you 1,000 times over, I think that is something that rooted, that kind of cemented their bond for years to come, that would stay even when Hassan would not be physically present, that would stay also within their fathers who shared you know with whom they shared their blood. So eventually, that phrase for you 1,000 times over, which Hassan does for Amir for more than 1,000 times over, I feel, with whatever he did. And then finally, when Amir does, kind of pay it back to him by rescuing his son from the clutches of Taliban. And then finally, when they do find their peace in America, where he is running after those kites for Saurabh, and Saurabh hasn't spoken for weeks altogether because of all that trauma, and because of even a slight prospect that he might be able to have that chance at life, that he might be denied his life once again. So, when he finally attempts to makes this sincere effort to pull that little boy back from the darkness, I think that is where that phrase even comes full circle. That even for Hassan, for his brother, for his brother's son, Amir would do anything for him 1,000 times over. That's what I think.
At last, I just want to comment that this phrase is not just a sentence of 6 words, but this phrase itself portrays a spiritual voyage, a poetic justice, which we can take from this novel. This can be a very big takeaway from this novel, I can say. This is the only thing I want to say because I don't want to repeat the points which were discussed.
So with this, we move on to the next point, which is the scenario of Afghanistan. The change they thought would be a good change, but it wasn't the case. And about immigration, like when he shifted to America. So, I mean, I had earlier known about American diaspora, working at a global level in a very tangible manner. Like, this is the population which migrates from here to here, and the very identity of, refugee status. But the sort of emotional quotient that is added to this sort of reductionist method of calling it a shift in the population is something that dawned upon me with this novel, because there's this emotional trauma that one goes through to leave one's land, to leave one's memory, to leave one's geography and move to a totally new land which is totally different culturally, geographically, in every way imaginable. So that's something which, I mean, again, the element of diaspora and migration and refugee status is something that was redefined to me through this book. And again, this scenario of Afghanistan, which is there, it's sort of a synecdoche of redemption that we earlier talked about. You know how there are different regimes working, and there is the trauma of past, but again, there's this slight beacon of hope that resurrects in the at the end of the novel. So that's something. These are the 2 points that I really wanted to mention because it's something that the novel brought to me. Because my understanding of the former point that I mentioned about this shift in population and again this sort of reductionist way in which it is described is something that Hosseini totally uh, abandons and adds the emotional quotient to it, which I think we from a privileged point of view fail to recognize. So this I mean again this idea of movement, of transhumance, of migration is something that we really need to understand. And the emotional repercussions of the same is something that Husseini wanted to describe, maybe through his novel. So, would someone would like to add to it?
Yeah, Priyanshi, just to add on to your point, I think Hosseini has very beautifully described the state of depravity of Afghanistan's population through that scene where Amir meets a beggar outside a tea shop, and he finds out that that beggar used to know Amir's mother, and they were together in the college, and she was pregnant at that time, and they had a good words with conversation with each other around how she was not happy about she was scared that she was happy to a point that she that something might turn out bad. So that scene in itself clearly depicted how bad the state of the conditions was in Afghanistan, that was prevailing, and how that person was very highly qualified, and he was reduced to beg on the streets. And how Hosseini also mentioned in few of the areas when they were traveling in the jeep that there were only children or women to be seen on the streets. Why? Because men were was the because fathers and men were the only privilege that was snatched from them, and they were deprived from the biggest privilege of life, that is their father, their protection. I mean, obviously, because this entire book idolizes uh, fathers and husbands as a protecting figure. So I kind of felt that moment, and that entire state of depravity was dawned upon me through that individual scene itself. So yes.
Would someone like to add to it?
I guess you can move on. I think how many points are there?
Yeah, sure. So, the next point being life of dignity in the second half of the novel by his father. So that is something that is, I think, even like Amir is a part of the life of dignity. That is, I mean, an attempt is made to reinfest this eroded life of dignity that had earlier eroded due to again the fascist regimes and the sort of social hierarchies that we talked about earlier, and how life of dignity is not just manifested emotionally. It's something that has gotten, I mean, far to the extent of physical violence, even when there's this duel between Asif and Amir. So the life of dignity is not something that is an idea or a state of mind. It's something that is more than that, and it's dauntingly more than that because it takes us a different physical tangent and a tangent of violence along with it. So it's a struggle rather than it being a state of mind. So yeah, that's what I thought about it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, dignity
Yes, I
definitely is
think
again.
dignity is not just. Oh, sorry, sir. Yes, please, Arpita, you can continue.
Any Aditya, you speak first, then I'll.
Okay, I have too little to speak, so I will conclude early. So what I'm saying that this dignity is not just about the having a luxurious life or dignity in social terminology or social norms, but it is like as Priyanshi said that it is also as per your mental faculty. And I think that this person Amir has grown a lot. Like he has grown enough. He has become mature now. When in the second half of the novel, if we say, and he can feel dignity within himself. If I'm thinking in the likes of spirituality, because he is now understanding the importance of his lost friend, or say lost brother, Hassan, and all these things. Like he now in his he is in a stage who can rectify his errors, whatever he did. So I think that the second half of the novel was more of uh, like an action thriller or something. The action was more into the second half.
Yeah, I think this was what I was about to say as well. So I think I completely agree with what Aditya says. Also, for me, this the whole theme, the whole I would say the whole matter of dignity here, the point of dignity here is again, it's laced throughout the book, not just the second half for me. Because in the first half, again, this going back to throw back to what Amir's father says, that there's only one sin, which is that of theft. And in this case, there's definitely this act of theft has been committed against Hassan multiple times. He's been, robbed of his right to dignity in more ways than one, by the more privileged sections. Then he was robbed of his, then he was physically robbed of his dignity, which he did not give up despite what happened to him, which he kept to himself because of the strength of his character. In the second half only, we see it being reinforced in a much stronger manner, because that is when Amir has developed from this little boy to a full grown man. That is when he understands his fears. He is now able to face them in a more, in a more, I would say, in a more sound manner, because now he has that ability to comprehend it. A, because of his innate sensitivity, and B, now he is an adult. जब हम बच्चे होते हैं समझ भी थोड़ी कम होती है. So now that he has grown up, he understands these themes better, these concepts rather better. And then he sees it everywhere. He sees it in Soraya, he sees it in her mother, he sees it in his father, he sees it around him. So because he is so surrounded by that concept of dignity, and none of them ever give it up. Soraya he sees as a strong woman, the Yelda to his dark nights. So, because he's so surrounded by that concept of dignity, that eventually, even though he is living in this, sheltered world where he is now respected, risen to a considerable height as an author, a considerable professional height as an author, has a secure personal life, but then he has to make that final claim to, secure his dignity in full. And that is where, I feel the themes of redemption and dignity merge together beautifully, to make this come full circle in more ways than one. So yeah, that's what I think.
So would someone like to add to it?
I think he wanted to say, right, Aditya? He was saying something.
No, I concluded before Arpita itself.
So I guess we can move on to the next point. I mean, rather a better way to put it, the final point, which is the importance of guests. So, I mean, for me, it was when obviously it was there. I mean, it comes as a Middle Eastern tradition, which even, percolates into the American landscape. So the idea of culture being carried is something that works on an intangible level. And we cannot see it, but we can see it happening. So in that way, it sort of is there, and it's, specifically something that is evident when Amir is treated, when he comes back to rescue Sorab. So even in the impoverished state, the idea of respecting the guest, of the sort of treatment, the unaltered treatment towards guests, is something that was really pleasing. Even in the distressing side of the novel, that was something that was really soothing, and something that makes you appreciate the latent goodness in people, even in unfavorable circumstances. So, would someone like to add to it or say something different, or literally anything? Because this is the last point we have.
Okay, so I guess nobody has maybe anything to say. Um, so is it okay, like if I conclude the session? Okay,
Surely.
awesome. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. I really enjoyed listening to you all. You guys covered so much, and you guys even mentioned the actual scenes that happened in the book, like when you were presenting your points. So that was really really helpful. So, and as usual, varied points, compared to the previous discussion as well. So, I mean, it kind of that's what narrative is really about. People can come and share their perspectives, and it's the one same book, and yet everybody perceives it so differently. And it's always good to come together and share them and hopefully get a clearer picture of what probably the author was trying to say. So yeah, thank you again for joining next time. It's very easy. Just tell us what book you'd like to discuss. We'll just find people within the community. We are around 2000 plus, and कोई ना कोई तो मिल ही जाएगा. So and also we have started this. Today itself we have Silky will be interviewing a bookstore called Booklastic, and we would like to invite readers to in case if you guys are interested to host bookstores as well as authors, and instead of us doing it, we would really want the readers themselves to engage, and hopefully that is an exciting opportunity for everybody. So yeah, thank you everyone, and have a good day, have a good Sunday.
Yeah, guys, please join me today at 7. It's my first interview and I'm very excited and would like some motivation from you all.
You'll do it. I mean, even I'm excited to listen. I always wondered what it's like to open a bookstore. We always interview authors, but
Yes,
how is it like to run a bookstore? I mean, so that's why and anyway, we had this campaign running, so we were like, we'll include this. So, yeah,
yes.
awesome.
All the
Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
yeah,
Yeah,
enjoy.
all the very best for your interview.
Thank you so much, Arpita.
All the
And
best.
kudos to you, Priyanshi. You hosted the discussion very well. Your points were amazing.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. So were you guys. You guys were amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.